Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This is a slightly different video. It's about a scam that can be pulled on taxi drivers. I've just been to stay with my sister for a few days, and while I was there I used a taxi. Of course I got talking to the taxi driver, and during the conversation I told him about this YouTube channel. And he told me this story that had happened to himself and to a fellow taxi driver. Like most taxi drivers these days, this taxi driver has his mobile phone connected via Bluetooth to display on the dashboard of his car. He told me that one day, whilst out on a job, he'd received a phone call from someone who claimed to be a member of staff at a well-known hotel in the centre of his local town. The caller said that he had some items that needed to be collected from Heathrow Airport and asked the driver if he could drive to the airport, collect the items, and also pick up two young ladies and bring them back to the hotel. This taxi driver has been in business for many years and knows all the numbers of the local hotel. In fact, he recited them to me by heart. He noticed that the number displayed on the dashboard in his car wasn't any of the hotel numbers, but was a mobile number. So he said he would do the job if he could go to the hotel first and get paid in advance. The caller refused to do this, saying the job was urgent, and so this taxi driver realised that something suspicious might be happening and refused to accept the job. A few days later, he got chatting to a mate of his who's also a taxi driver in the same town. His mate started telling the story of how he had received a similar phone call, claiming to come from a member of staff at the same hotel, and telling him that they had a software problem and they needed someone to drive to Heathrow and collect some discs that they needed for their computer, and along the way asking if they could collect two young ladies and bring them back to the hotel. This other taxi driver, having no reason to suspect that anything was amiss, accepted the job. Heathrow Airport is about 3 hours from the town where I was staying, and this taxi driver set off for the airport. After he'd been on the road for about 2 hours, he received a phone call from this so-called member of staff at the hotel asking how his journey was going. He told him that he only had about an hour left before reaching the airport. A little while later, he received another phone call from the same person, saying that for some reason there was a problem and they were unable to use their credit card, and that the person that was handing over the discs would need to be paid £200. They asked the taxi man if he'd be able to do that, and he said that was no problem as he had some cash on him from a previous job. The taxi man reached the airport and met up with the person who had the discs. He, of course, handed over £200 and then proceeded to the address he'd been given where he was supposed to pick up the two young ladies. He knocked on the door and didn't receive an answer. He waited for about 50 minutes and then phoned the caller to say that there'd been no response from the girls. The caller said not to worry, if they couldn't be bothered to be there on time, then he should come back to the local town and they could make their own way. The taxi driver set off for the return journey. When he arrived back in town, he tried calling the number. There was no response. So he went to the local hotel to see if they could tell him what had happened. They had no record of any calls being made to him, and no record of the hotel having any software problems. It was then that the awful truth started to dawn on our taxi driver. The person who'd called him had no connection at all with the local hotel. The hotel didn't have software problems and didn't need a disc to be collected from anywhere. The taxi driver had fallen victim to a scammer who'd taken advantage of his good nature and his willingness to trust his potential customers. This scammer had taken £200 from him, plus he'd done a 6-hour round trip to the airport at his own expense for petrol, plus wear and tear on his vehicle, and lost revenue from the trips that he would have been able to do had he remained in town. If someone that you know is a taxi driver or a private hire vehicle driver, please make sure that they're aware of this scam. Most local taxi drivers work on trust and would see no reason not to trust the caller. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like it, Please share it, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again in another Keep Safe on the Net video on YouTube.